Great. Welcome to the Poverty Reduction Tools for Frontline Staff session, fortnightly session, bringing together people across the system working to support residents who are struggling. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all the brilliant work you do for Hackney residents. My name's Jenny Zenow. I'm a strategic lead in the policy and strategic delivery team, and my colleague John Davis, also in the team, has curated this session where we will start with Titilayo from the Long COVID service, whose camera's just gone off. Are you okay there, Titilayo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. Make sure that everything is fine.
Okay, so over to you, Titilayo.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you, John and Jenny, for this opportunity. I think I'm just going to allow John to share my slides, if possible.
Sorry, give me 1 moment. Just waiting for them to load.
Yeah, because I sent you an updated one again. Yeah, just briefly. But is my mic okay? Can people hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just here to talk about my role within this team, well-being in long COVID and MECFS, and to make focus on the benefits of coming to the poverty tools every other Thursday since I think about 8 months now that I've been involved with this great partnership. Do we have the next slide, please? I'm just going to introduce myself briefly. So my name is Titilayo West. For those who are just joining for the first time, and I'm the care coordinator for long COVID and MECFS City and Hackney NHS Trust. I started this role in June 2022. Prior to that, I was an adult intensive nurse, care nurse. I had the opportunity to work in Abu Dhabi for about 14 months between 2017 to 2018 as ICU nurse. And after that, I decided to go back to get some knowledge about public health and health service management, and which I had the opportunity to do collaborative work, educational journals, which I wrote with two of my lecturers at the time. Next slide, please. So this is just going to be short and snappy. Just going to explain what is long COVID and CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome or myalgic encephalitis. And I will talk briefly about our service, the team that I work with, and my role of the care coordinator, and the outcomes, some of the things that I've gained from coming to this workshop every other Thursday to gain knowledge about, Hackney, knowledge about how to solve people's, real life issues. And after that, I can open to quick Q&A. Next slide, please, John. So what do you mean by post-COVID? I'm sure when COVID broke, the pandemic in 2020 has led a catastrophic impact on worldwide, huge inequalities, even in the UK. Lots of people lost their lives and lost their livelihoods. Really remarkable impact on people's life. And so many people who have had the infection have not fully recovered, which came about with the post-COVID-19 syndrome or long COVID. So it's signs and symptoms that develop during or after an infection consistent with COVID-19, which continues for more than 12 weeks and cannot be explained by an alternative diagnosis. And this is from NICE guidelines. Next slide, please. ME, which is described as a persistent fatigue, a minimum of 6 weeks or longer, that are significantly impaired an ability to engage in usual activities, daily activities, which cannot be explained by another illness, and has all of the following features: debilitating fatigue, post-sessional malaise, or research sleep, cognitive difficulties. Next slide, please. And I decided to put in these slides so that people can see the ranges of different symptoms that people go through from each of those conditions. And these symptoms can definitely have huge impact on people being able to live a life that, that is without any stress. We see how this can impact the ability for people to work, for people to maintain their own self-dignity. And one of the reasons why I wanted people to see this is that sometimes what we've heard from these people is that they're not believed, that people don't believe, some people still don't believe that long COVID exists. They just believe that you just need to go and rest and you'll be fine with it. But it's not as easy as it seems. Next slide, please. So as a service, what do we aim to do? So we tend to investigate symptoms further and refer to other specialist medical services if needed. We support people in learning skills, strategies to live well, given the situation they find themselves in. And then we signpost to other community support services as appropriate, which is one of my key roles within the service as well. Next slide, please. So who we are as a team. So it's a robust multidisciplinary team. We've got CBT, physios, occupational therapists, and I closely work with the engagement lead and the coordinator. We try to raise awareness of this service by working with this engagement. We go around to speak to people who are not fully represented within the service. We also encourage people to do self-referral if the GP is not willing to refer them. So we encourage people that if they're not feeling well and they've had COVID, they can self-refer to the team, to the service. Next slide, please. So, so my role came as a result of a biopsychosocial model, which the service lead came about. So I started this role in June 2022, and I remembered my manager was telling me that, oh, Titilayo, you have to find your fit in, because obviously this is a new role within this team, and we will support you, but you need to find a way to be able to resolve some of these issues, that our clients are going through, and so that we can provide holistic care, because they realized over time, the team started in June 2021, and they realized over time that so many clients that come through our services also have lots of these issues, financial support. I've been supporting them to, housing issues. So I was brought on to be able to alleviate this problem. So my role involves financial support. One of the ways that when a client comes and they do a rounded multidisciplinary assessment, and they make sure they dwell into the physical needs, the medical needs, as well as the social needs. So we got lots of people feel, with carer support problems, people who are looking after loved ones, and yet they've contacted COVID. So we have to find a way to be able to support them. So I do weekly check-ins as well for some people who are not fully engaging, to see, why they're not, wanting to apply for benefits. And sometimes some people talk about the negativity of going into benefit systems. Some of our clients have been, working, but because of long COVID, maybe they're not able to work, and they've heard lots of stories about the negativity around the benefit system. But so I do weekly check-ins to try and encourage people that it is not as bad as you think. Yeah, next slide, please. So as a result of working with Hackney Poverty Tools in reducing this huge widening inequalities and helping people to resolve some of these things that could impact on their recovery whilst they're receiving therapy. Household Support Fund, I was fully, I think that was one of the things that made me John and Jenny to come into this partnership, and then I was invited to this meeting. When the household support scheme was coming to an end, I think the 2023, I managed to get some of our clients to get the £200, which was, a life changing for some people. Employment issues, we've got lots of people who have issues with employers not understanding the impact of the long COVID. So I needed to understand who can help, and I think this was a liaison from John that told me about Hackney Community Law Center. And I think for someone like me who doesn't even reside in Hackney, it was important for me to understand all the nitty-gritty of how things work within the council. And I've used some of the contacts that's been given to me on this platform. We've had few people who had huge debts cleared, and I think one of the things that this role made me to understand is, as a nurse, when you look after people and you do all you can for them within the hospital, but when they have to go back to their individual homes, there are other bigger pictures of issues that they have to deal with. Some people will be home without a job, or lots of piled up of debt. So this has made me to understand the impact of both worlds on the health of people. I'm also a registered person on the food banks. I've understood some of the various organizations within Hackney, the ones, where I can signpost people to. And even as a result of this partnership, I've been able to get laptops to some of our clients who couldn't afford to buy laptops and who would prefer to be having their appointment virtually, because we realize some of our clients are bedbound, are homebound, sorry, I should say, so they cannot come physically to the appointment. So we had to make sure that I was able to source laptops for them. Next slide, please. So as a result of my role from June 2022 to February 2024, so I've been able to liaise with organizations including Hackney Poverty Tools, Engage Hackney, Social Services, and some of these organizations, I didn't know of them. It was as a result of this partnership, the newsletter, the people that I meet on these meetings, understanding of how the arrangements within even the housing hub. And I remembered there was a difficult case that I had at the beginning when I took on the role. And I think that was the first time I had to, someone linked me to Neil, that I had to send an email to Neil about that case. And yeah, we were able to get a result, because having a straight contact, people that you can ask questions or take queries to, has really helped. Hackney Choice in Hackney, and HIV Social Care Coordinator, which I'm working within the Homerton Trust, and I'm trying to get him to be part of this, because I was working close with him when I started the role. Hackney Fixers were the people who gave us the laptops. Hackney Food Bank, they still, giving out food, shelter, learned about when people have problems with homelessness. Community Law Center, I've been in partnership with them, HSF partners and coordinators, and with the HSF, that has been really really successful. And sometimes we do have hiccups where people have had few situations where the vouchers have expired, because some of our clients were not able to get it within a certain time, and I had to go back to the coordinators. Thanks to Elvina for always listening and always coming on board to resolve those kind of issues with me. And happy to reissue for clients who have difficulties in cashing it, especially when they're not well. So these are the few things I've been able to do as a result of this partnership. And even with the grade, getting to understand the PIP as well, that's been a difficult and challenging area, because some of our clients in the past have been refused because, long COVID has not been fully recognized. But with a better understanding on how to approach, completing the form, and there are some organizations that have, refer people to help them in getting that form started. And we as a service, we're happy to write supporting information to, to collaborate their difficulties. We've been able to help people with reasonable adjustments at work, and referrals and engagement with voluntary sectors such as Hackney. Multidisciplinary working with neighborhood meetings has been very, 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 very useful. And another difficulty is getting through to social workers who are involved, but that I'm getting my footing in gradually, slowly, gradually. And lastly, some of our clients who have benefited from the household support funds have given positive reviews. I'm just going to read one or two out from here. One of them wrote, "Good morning, Titilayo. I've now received my £100, which has helped me to pay off some of my rent for this month. I really appreciate all your help and support." Someone wrote, "Today I received the SMS text containing the household support fund voucher. I'm going to go and get the cash. This has really meant a lot to me." So those are some of the positive reviews that we have received as being able to roll out that vouchers. As small as the £100 seems, it's definitely been very useful to so many people who are really struggling with, the rising cost of living expenses. Next slide, please. And I think the next slide is just some of the, it's sometimes difficult to get the data around, but we just kind of put this together, like some of the outcomes that we've been able to achieve for the various clients that we've discharged from this, from my input. And as you can see, the HSL application approved has come on top. New housing secured, people have been able to move out of their, not so happy accommodation to a better private accommodation. Housing crisis resolved. We've had people who had eviction notices that we've been able to take the cases to neighborhood, and they've, resolved those cases. I think generally when people have debt, it's sometimes difficult, and the way people perceive what were you doing, that you have to accrue this debt. And sometimes people just need to listen, and we've been able to find a way to listen and to bring about a resolution to some of those problems. And we've been able to signpost to other organizations as well who are readily available to help. And of course, benefits application approved, and some of them that are still in process. Yeah, next slide. So the next slide just talk about, if you just click, just talk about what, yeah, people with these conditions just need to be believed, validated, and supported. Next one, please. And so gaining insight and awareness of the condition and the interplay of how it triggers on people's ability and the impact that it has on their self-esteem and ability to get on with things before all of this comes into play. And knowing that sometimes recovery can take time. So this group of people probably need patience and persistence. Yeah, that's it for now. And nurturing an environment for the body to get back into balance, which is some of our core aims within this team. And thank you. If there's any questions. Thank you, Jan. any insight. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Titilayo. That was really fantastic presentation. It was, I mean, like you say, you've been coming to these meetings maybe for 8 or 9 months now, but I feel like I've got a full grasp of your role and the whole breadth of what you do. So it's really great to hear, and really great to sort of hear about all the impacts that you feel that have come about from attending this meetings and being part of HSF. So yeah, really fantastic to hear. Does anyone have any questions for Titilayo around either non-COVID work or the work that should be part of in terms of sort of this wider poverty reduction work? Mayor Woodley, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm just thinking it must be so different case by case with the people suffering from long COVID. And it really struck me what you were saying about believe, validate and support, and that recovery can take time. I mean, do you have the capacity to continue that support over a long period of time? Or do you, is there any, are there similarities more than there are sort of differences in terms of how long that support needs to continue?
Thank you, Caroline. I think one of the problems we had as a team is, number one, even funding for the old team to be able to carry on. And so we really have to fight for that to keep this service. In terms of the people that comes to us, obviously needs are diverse, and we do try our best to try and meet those needs. We might not be able to meet all of them, but we do try to kind of get a balance. If let's say someone comes with a huge debt and they're looking for how to alleviate that, obviously I look at, are they already getting any benefit? Are they, what's their current situation? We try to review that on a case by case. And if they're not on any benefit, so we try to encourage, okay, so you can get, the first step is try to say you can get your universal credit if you're not having any money in, or if you're working part-time, that's means tested. So we try, and by going to different workshops to be able to understand, because I personally didn't understand how all these benefits kind of play up and interplay with one another, which one you can get and which one you can't get. And thankfully there is Hackney website turned to us that I go there with the clients, and we do these calculator benefits, and we see what they're missing on and what they can get. But on the cases of being able to manage that on a long term, I believe that as long as the service is still running, it's our obligation to try and do as much as we can. And if we can't, to try and signpost to organizations that can be able to help to help them. Thank you.
Thanks, Titilayo. Genevieve, do you want to come in?
Thank you very much. Awesome stuff, Titilayo. Thank you so much for sharing. I had to take a call while you were speaking, so apologies if you addressed this. But my question was, are you finding your caseload is diminishing, increasing? Are they able to come out of this long COVID? Is there an end to this, or is it?
Okay. In terms of therapy, I mean, the therapists have got all the things that they use, the way they do the work. So we have like so if someone comes in and they do the assessment, they can start with the physio. So you can go around, so you see the speech and language. So you can do that after maybe 8 sessions with the physio. And if there is no improvement, so the team already has a way that they work with in terms of managing the conditions. Okay, so now moving outside the conditions, obviously with long COVID, there isn't any fix, so people are still discharged when they've reached that they're able to manage without, and we have to take into consideration that sometimes people do relapse, and we've encouraged them that they can come back as a self-referral. So there is a way that we keep them for a certain amount of time. Okay, in terms of social needs, of course, what I've realized is when people are referred, they can come in to have, the first thing could be they're having financial difficulties. And as I go along working with them, there might be other issues that will come along. But what we do as a team is we all review our caseload every now and then to see how we're managing how we're managing them. And one of the things I've realized, even for myself, is by the time I'm telling someone, okay, we're coming to the end, we need to review all the objectives that we set together at the beginning. And if we've met all of them, this is the time I'm considering to close your referral. And you'll realize that human nature, the moment I say that, then they will say, oh, it's like, you know what, there is something that I want you to, you know, there's a query here.
Sure.
Okay, yes, so there is always that, but we do try to manage our caseload so that it doesn't get too overwhelming for us as well as a team.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks both. Does anyone else have any other questions for Titilayo before we move on to the next presentation? No. Okay. Well, thank you again so much, Titilayo. That was really, really great, and yeah, it's really great to have you part of this network, and yeah, or to carry on working together. Charlie, do you want to come in?
Not a question, but Titilayo, I just thought I'd flag the 2 comments in the chat for you, just an opportunity for you to follow up on. I've emailed you and Molly, and Felicia's identified a service that might be of use to you as well.
Say that again, Charles.
In the chat, Titilayo, there are 2 comments that might be of use for your service going forward that might be worth connecting with.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. We are going to move on to our next presentation, which is from Molly from Groundwork. So do you want to come in, Molly? You're on mute, Molly. I'm still struggling to hear you, but it doesn't say you're on mute, so I'm not sure.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a new this button that I accidentally press all the time, puts me on mute. It's very
No worries.
fantastic. Are you going to share my slides, John, or I can share them? I'm happy. Either way.
I haven't actually got them up, so do you want to share them? Is that all right?
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, fantastic, and thank you so much for having me here. I'll just get my slides up. So my name is Molly Sweeney, and I work for Groundwork London, and we have a range of different projects that we deliver. So we've got our base in Hackney, which I'm not at today, unfortunately, but we're always very excited. I now can't see anyone aside from my screen, which should say GLA London Community Resilience Toolkit. Is that the case? Yes.
Yeah.
And if there's any kind of problems or anyone puts something in the chat, feel free to interrupt me, just because I won't be able to see any comments or hands up or anything. So yeah, we do a lot of different projects. However, this one I'm talking about today specifically is a project with Groundwork London and Groundwork South. So Groundwork is a federation across the UK of different groundworks. So we're kind of connected to them, but separate organisations. And there's also a Groundwork USA and a Groundwork Japan. And you'll see the Communities Prepared logo, and Groundwork South run a project called Communities Prepared, which is training for community members in resilience in the case of emergencies. So that might be flooding, fire, terrorism, malicious kind of acts of violence. And so that's what that logo is, and that's what I'm talking to you today about. It's a toolkit funded by the GLA for community organisations such as yourself to think about how to be more resilient in the face of emergencies. Why are we thinking about resilience now? So I was actually, just as the kind of presentation started in Titilayo's great presentation about long COVID, was thinking about 4 years ago, approximately, reading I was in a flat share with 4 other people, and I was reading the government's isolation guidance for this COVID-19 thing that we're suddenly hearing a lot about. And it suggested that if you thought somebody in your household had COVID-19, then they should use a separate bathroom to everyone else. And we had 1 bathroom for 5 people. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh dear. And so I think that's a kind of useful memory to think about. I'm sure we all remember the phrase, we're all in the same sea, but in very different boats. And that's something I wanted to put out here as I sort of begin to talk about it, that we're moving into a period where we're going to have a lot more extreme weather, and we have had a lot more extreme weather recently, and that is only going to become an increasing theme. We're also moving into a very challenging period for politics at home and abroad. There's the cost of living crisis ongoing. So I think that is partly why we are thinking about community resilience now. We've got to be sort of prepared for a lot of challenges that are to come. And one of the things that we want to do is make it very easy for community groups to think about what they need to prepare. Who would be affected in your community if there was a flood, and how could you respond to that? And so as we're making this toolkit that you'll be able to access, we really need to hear those things about, hang on a second, not everyone has 2 bathrooms, or the more less obvious things about the different cultural needs, the different needs of your community, the impact of being disabled, the impact of having a disability, a hidden, invisible disability, rather than hidden, sorry, of like ME or long COVID, and being really aware of those kind of challenges. And that's why we need to hear from you. So this is just a little bit more context. Obviously, London is facing increasing climate challenges. We've been tasked by the GLA to develop a community resilience toolkit, and it will provide information, guidance, tools to support you. So there'll be lots of things like templates, action plans. It will be a really practical document where you can kind of work through it and then feel a lot more prepared for events like flooding, fires, heat waves, etc. And this is the kind of audience that we'd be looking at, especially kind of groups that really work directly with a particular community, but any kind of groups that would do community work, as well as statutory partners, people like the local authority, Hackney Council, etc. And yeah, we want it to be sort of bridging gaps, be practical, not too long and overwhelming, accessible. And we're using this period to test and learn. So that's why I'm here talking today, the community engagement. We want to hear from you. And this is broadly what we'll cover. So there'll be an introduction, obviously, and then talking specifically in the context of climate change and how that will mean increased weather. So one kind of like not a catchphrase, but a phrase you might hear often is once a century becomes once a decade. So if you think about the history, maybe, 30, 40 years ago, things that were once a century, think about those happening much more regularly. Extreme flooding, extreme heat. And it's maybe worth bearing in mind that since I think June last year, every month has been the hottest. June, July, September, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. They have all been record-breaking months. So that's something to bear in mind when thinking ahead to the summer. Planning for emergencies as a community. Kind of volunteering and responding, it's an amazing thing when lots of people want to volunteer. It's also kind of overwhelming as someone who worked in volunteering during COVID. And there's a lot of things I think we've learned through COVID for engaging those kind of emergency volunteers and maintaining that. Community resilient spaces, so that might be a rest centre, it might be a warm hub, it might be a cool space in the heat wave. And skills and capacities and capabilities you will want to develop, and also thinking about that. And I missed community mapping. So what are the needs, strengths, challenges, risks and resources of your community? And one thing I meant to say before is this is a really asset-based piece of work. And what I mean by that is, what are the strengths that your community has? It may be that because of the nature of your disability, you are online a lot and the value of that. It may be because you are of a faith group that has a really strong community-focused core, and you're very aware of how to support your community, and there's that real sense there, and that's one of your assets. So this is a kind of document that's really going to be focused in the wonderful assets that communities in London have, rather than taking a very negative or really taking an attitude that certain groups are vulnerable and need lots of help, rather than here are their strengths and here's how we can support them to make the most of their strengths. And obviously frequently asked questions, and again it will be that kind of practical document. And so we've got 2 ways to share your views. The really simple thing is 10 minutes, a 10-minute survey. on Microsoft Forms. It can be shared with everyone and anyone. Share it as widely as you can. And it's just to gather thoughts, insights, suggestions on how the toolkit's kind of written, what you think would be most appealing and practical for people, and anything you think we've missed in terms of detail, in terms of templates. So really happy to hear that. And the other thing is a community focus group. Be around 45 minutes per session, but if you can only give us half an hour or you'd really want an hour, that's also fine, either in line or in person. And it can be adapted to suit your community focus. If you're working with an ESOL group, we can work with that. If you're working with a group of people who do art therapy, we can come along and do some creative activities exploring community resilience. And it's the opportunity for you to see more of the toolkit, test templates, tools, and share further insights. So we don't want the first time a community group uses this toolkit is when there's been a flood. We want it to be now, so that we can hear, hang on a second, you've just assumed X, Y, and Z, and that won't work for us, or what on earth does this word mean? Or I have absolutely no idea who that person is or what that organization is. And it would have been helpful 3 months ago to know that they hold a regular meeting that I can come along to, or I can email them to have a chat about community resilience. So I think that's really what we want. So either of those, obviously, ideally both. Ideally, you'll come and talk to us, but it'd be really great if we can get as many people from Hackney contributing to the survey. Yeah, so that's my kind of whistle-stop tour. I'm just going to stop sharing. Are there any questions or comments that anyone has, or is there anything that I should explain again? Hi, Genevieve.
Hello, Molly. Thank you very much. I just love this idea. I mean, the community feedback, it's awesome when the community knows that we are listening. Doesn't mean we always have something we can do about it, but it does help us, gives us an opportunity to give them information, guidance, and support, which this group is so good at too. So good luck to you on that, Molly. I just wonder, I was wondering if there would be any benefit from using one of these community groups with any of our temporary accommodation residents. Again, they will probably have a lot to moan about, and it's not necessarily a whinging session we want, but it is an opportunity for them to be heard.
Absolutely. Well,
maybe we can speak more about it.
Absolutely. Offline. And I don't work for the council as well, so I can come in with that, and we can talk about where we, definitely really keen to hear from that experience, because again, that feels like a group that so wasn't heard during COVID. People where, you know, housing isn't, definitely.
Great. Thank you very much, Molly.
Hi, Charles.
Hi, Lottie. Thanks for the presentation. I wondered as well, if you, while you're here talking about the work the Groundwork do, if you could kind of speak about some of the things the Groundwork do in Hackney that might be useful for the different organisations here to hear about. I'm thinking like the Silver Linings Club. I know that the kind of activities that some of the organisations might be able to refer into, or kind of get a sense of what you do on the ground.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just going to really quickly make a note of Genevieve. So contact temp.com. Great. Sorry, I've got a bit of a slow brain today. So yeah, Groundwork London also run a lot of community activities. Our Silver Linings program is currently not funded, so we can't offer that, which was our project for older people, but we always hope that it will return, and you'll be the first to know if it does. But every Tuesday, we have our wonderful free-range garden. So that's therapeutic gardening activities. People can come along. There are refreshments. It's a really friendly, warm group. They can get involved in gardening activities, or they can stay, they don't necessarily have to do outdoor gardening if they don't want to. There are always sort of indoor activities that are plants, nature-based, books to look at, gentle kind of activities to do. It's for all ages, and it's both from 11 to 1 p.m. every Tuesday at our office in Lower Clapton Road. I'll post into more details in the chat in a minute. We also have the mobile garden, which is in Hackney Wick, and we're going to have more workshops there coming up soon. So that's just kind of across the bridge. It's a really beautiful little space, and you can come along and learn about gardening there, led by our amazing community gardeners. We also, sorry, third point, and then feel free to interrupt me, Charles, if I'm dragging this off course. We have our corporate volunteering team. So they kind of broker and then deliver a corporate volunteering day. So from your point of view, if you've got a green space particular or another kind of space that you want to be transformed, you can get in touch with us. It's free for you. The corporates, we can also sometimes contribute towards expenses for yourself, potentially. And the corporates come and are entirely facilitated, and it's sort of the insurance and all the administration and everything is covered by us. And there will be a big change in what you're looking at. It's amazing what the team can do with 20 accountants. And so you'll find that that's something that's a really great service that we can offer for kind of free for you, or potentially cover the expenses. And the other thing is, we're always keen to partner for funding applications, and for smaller organizations who maybe don't have a lot of fundraising resource. And outside of this work, I co-run a very small organization, and I know how amazing it is working at Groundwork when I'm writing a funding application and then I can send it to the fundraising team and they can do some of the work. So we're always keen to hear about if you have a group that you'd like to partner with us. We can support with the fundraising and then delivering some education around climate change, around gardening, nature, and all of the different areas of work that Groundwork does, which is all about people and places, and kind of the environment side and the social side. So yeah, I think that's enough from me, but thank you very much, Charles, for that prompt.
Cheers, Molly. Thank you.
Thanks, Molly. I was going to ask, what's the timescale for the toolkits? So I'm just thinking about other spaces and forums like this that we might be able to link you in with. I'm just thinking, how long was your sort of consultation period before you sort of,
Definitely. That's such a good, I definitely should have led with that. So the toolkit is due in June.
Okay.
I've just realised how soon that is now. So definitely, I think we'd still be really keen to hear in April and May and connect with people. So yeah, definitely. Any other spaces, that would be amazing to hear and feedback those perspectives.
Perfect. Thanks, Molly. Does anyone else have any questions for Molly before we move on? No. Okay. Thanks so much, Molly. It's really, really great work. And I'll share, if you're okay, I can share the link and the slides and everything in the newsletter, which goes out after this meeting. So yeah, hopefully you'll get some take up out of that as well. Okay, cool. I think we're going to move on to Rachel, who's going to talk to us a bit about give us an update on the universal credit migration, which we discussed at length in the last session. If you weren't able to make that, the recording of it is online. It's on the council's YouTube page, and Ume from the local DWP came along and answered lots and lots of questions about the process. So that's there, but I think Rachel's going to speak briefly now about that work.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a brief update about, how this is all going and the sort of information as it unfolds. So I've put a link to the text of John's email, which hopefully you should all have received earlier this week, because we did receive some additional funding from the DWP, and we do hope that Ume's on leave at the moment, but we hope that when she comes back after Easter, she will be attending these sessions on a regular basis. And she's also said that offered her services, and also the services of some of her colleagues, partnerships managers at the DWP, if people want to get her or her colleagues to come and do presentations to your own networks. I think it's really important that we take her up on those offers, and that we get her and her colleagues in front of the largest audiences we can, because this is quite a complex piece of work, and I certainly don't know all the complexities and wouldn't seek to attempt to explain some of it, because I don't want to mislead people. But just going through this the notes that John sent round. So yeah, as John was saying, we do have a recording of Umi's presentation at the last tool session, and it is in this document. And also, I did attend a meeting with the DWP for councils last Friday, and they said that the letters will start going out on the 9th of April. We expect that between 10 and 12,000 people in Hackney will be impacted this financial year. And just to give you some idea of the timelines, so from April to June, they will be sending migration letters to people on income support, tax credits and housing benefit. In June to August, it will be people on housing benefits only. In July to September, employment support allowance and child tax credits. August to September, pension age tax credits recipients, including mixed age couples. And in September, people on job seeker allowance. And we think that between April and September this year, about around 5,500 people will be contacted. So in terms of what you need to do, if you come across somebody who is actually received one of these letters, just make sure they get support, make sure they get help. There is a help to claim service, which details are in this document. And Umi did share the link to the leaflet, which we sent out. And she also shared some links, and I've also put it in this document, to local contacts from Job Centre Plus. So within Hoxton, Hackney, Hillman Street and Hackney Mayor Street. And, that's not to be shared with residents, but it is for professionals and the local authority. If you're having issues and you need to ask somebody's advice or you need to escalate something, she did share escalation routes. She also shared some information about advice services locally, as well as the guidance from DWP. And so I think the key message really at this point is that if you do know somebody's got one of these notices, to please tell them to act on the information in that advice letter, that they need to go online, that they need to apply for universal credit via the DWP's portals. And that obviously will create problems for some people going online, transacting online. Computers are available at the job centres and also at the libraries, but I think Umi said that they would not be able to sit down and write people's applications with them. But there is that option of that escalation route and those name contacts within the DWP. The DWP is they're doing a radio ad campaign, aimed at alerting people who might be getting these letters to actually act on them, because I think it's important to understand that if people don't act on them and they don't apply for universal credit, they will lose their benefits and they will lose what they call the transitional protection. So if they're actually better off on their existing benefits, they will lose that, that bridging allowance that they will get when they move to DWP. So it's really important that people do apply within the 3-month window. And of course, we are obviously very worried that if people don't apply, they will be left with no benefits, and they'll have to wait as well. They'll have to make a claim for universal credit, wait for that to be processed. There may be a gap between, now and when they actually receive, when they apply and when they receive their benefit. So it's really important that people act. It's really important that people get the right sort of support. And also it's important that you keep in touch with us. We've set up a log for you to log issues that we can then raise with Umi and the DWP and hopefully get those resolved as soon as possible. I don't think I'll put it in the document, so I'll put a link to that log as well. But like I say, we will be returning to this in future meetings. We'll be developing some communications for people in Hackney, and we'll put stuff out via our own council social media and our newsletters and our newspapers and so on. But obviously it's important that we all work together on this to ensure that we reach the people who need that information. I'll stop there. I doubt whether I'll be able to answer lots of technical questions, but if people have got any questions that I can answer, I'll be happy to answer if I can. Genevieve.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you so much. This message needs to go out over and over again. And really not so much question as just to reiterate that managed migration, that 90-day window up to 120 days. But if they miss that window, they don't get that protection. And that protection means that if they apply, when they go over to universal credit, if their benefits are going to be less than they were on legacy benefits, UC will match those benefits indefinitely until their UC naturally rises, and then that drops off. But if they let this lapse and don't apply, they lose all that protection. And so it's really critical for those people who might have to take a dip in income, which may impact their living expenses, paying their rent, and so forth. So again, it's very important to get this done. And if they are having problems, they can contact for up to an extra 30 days to get an extension to apply. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And Molly?
Hi. Obviously, this is such important work. One thing I'm would really appreciate is, as soon as possible, some resident-facing information. I'll be honest, I am a professional working in the charity sector. I find this very confusing. It's not like and I'm not criticizing the communication. It is a really confusing subject, but I really would not feel confident speaking to someone about this. So it would be really great if there could be like a one-pager. So sorry, I'll say again that it would be great to have a one-pager for VCS partners that really clearly lays it out with by X date, and then what various things, like various pension credit, what does that mean, for example, and then something resident facing. Thinking about some of the groups that we work with, obviously it is a kind of personal thing to identify that you are on benefits, and there is sometimes stigma, unfortunately. And in our services, we want to be able to open it up in a very gentle way, rather than and that's probably best done through a handout that people can kind of appreciate on their own terms, rather than a presentation where people might have to talk about it or hear discussions that maybe some more negative views. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so the DWP is going to be putting out sort of resident facing communication materials, so things like copy for letters, emails, websites, like sort of gifts that you can put in your email address to remind people if they get a notice what to do. I'm sort of waiting for that because I'd like to be able to use, or we'd like to be able to use their materials as much as possible, because obviously we don't want to risk getting something wrong. I have drafted like a sort of 2-pager for advice partner or for VCS partners, and I'm waiting for the DWP to have a look at that and make comments on it, because again, I don't want to like put stuff out, or we don't want to put stuff out that's wrong and then confuse everybody and then send everyone in the wrong direction. We want to work with the DWP on this. And also I think we do need to, because obviously the DWP are putting out information, they're doing this radio campaign, but where are the advertising? We do need to do some work, possibly with our members and possibly with our senior officers, and also possibly through things like the Greater London, the London councils and the Greater London Local Government Association, to try and put pressure on the DWP to fund or actually produce information in community languages. We haven't seen the information yet, so I don't want to preempt. It might be really, really good. But knowing the kind of communities we've got in Hackney, is it going to be advertised in ways that they will understand, that they will access? Is it going to be advertised in languages or in a way that they would be able to relate to? We also have specific challenges here with the Orthodox Jewish community, where they don't access, online services. They have filters that mean that it comes through to the DWP, like they're applying for a benefit on abroad, and then their sort of application gets knocked back. So we've got all sorts of challenges that we need to keep, feeding back to the DWP on and getting resolution on them. So so obviously we welcome the fact that they've actually given us some information, and we'll continue to work with them. But I think we are going to need to kind of work both with our local DWP, but also, through our national bodies and regional bodies to try and, make sure that their offer is actually in line with what our people need here.
Absolutely.
So,
When
yeah.
do you think you'll be able to get those that kind of copy and that information from the DWP? Is there a timeline for that?
Yeah, so Omi is on leave until the 2nd of April, and so am I. So I won't be able to pick it up with her until then. I'm not sure when because when I went for the meeting with the DWP last week, they said we are doing an information pack is coming out, but I haven't seen anything. I don't know if any council colleagues have seen anything. So I think if anyone sees anything, if they could let us know. And but they said it will, this public facing communication. The radio ad was supposed to start on Monday. I haven't heard it. I don't know if anybody here has, but yes, I agree with you. We do need kind of clear, public and VCS facing information, but we need to make sure it's right and that we're not confusing people with the wrong information. So yeah. Okay. Charles.
Just a flag for you, Molly. We're going to try and run a session for community infrastructure partners with the DWP as well, so you can flesh these questions out in a bit more detail with the DWP. That's in the works, but no specific date yet.
Yeah, that's right. We are chasing up a time for a meeting with Omi, aren't we? And we need to get Omi and her colleagues in front of as many networks as we can as well. Yeah. And we are, as a council and with some of our key partners, meeting every month with Omi and the DWP to kind of see how this is all going, flagging issues as they're coming up, practical issues that arise.
Thanks, Rachel. And
okay, thank you.
Yeah, really important piece of work, and I think something we'll need to pull together on. It will take a whole system approach to do the best job we can in making sure people don't lose out. We've got Mayor Woodley here, and I think you were going to say a few words. So please feel free to come in. And thanks so much for coming along. It's great to have you in this space.
Thank you, John. I remember when you first started these sessions and how informative I found them, both as a ward councillor and as a cabinet member, and now as mayor. Really, really fantastic that this work is continuing. So thank you so much for that. I was thinking as Titulea was speaking on long COVID, on how I first came into cabinet just as we went into national lockdown. I think I'd had about 2 weeks in the cabinet office, and then we were all sent home. And it felt like I learned about 10 years worth of what council services could do in the sort of the 2 years that followed. But more importantly, I sort of saw how important partnership working was, and the relationship with the sort of all those community advice services and groups who just kind of ran to the aid of our residents. So it's been really quite extraordinary. And we knew even then that we were entering a marathon, not a sprint. That was the term that kept getting used. And you'll all remember, the at pace, we have to act at pace and all of that. But it's really clear from the presentations today that we're still really trying to understand how to build resilience and sustainability in the face of what have been wave after wave after wave of crisis. So even though I'm mayor now, I've held on to much of my cabinet brief, which was focused around family support, particularly around early years and around special educational needs and disabilities, so some of our most vulnerable families. And also, as things changed over the course of a year, I ended up taking on parks and leisure, did a lot of work with green infrastructure, child-friendly planning and design. But one of the things I was thinking when Molly was speaking, in terms of climate change and sort of resilience in the wider public realm, was with our Parks and Green Spaces strategy. When that first came forward, there was a sort of a desire and intention to try and get more people out to using. We've got 58 parks and green spaces, to using them. We're a densely built borough, people on top of each other. Overcrowding is a real challenge. To come out into our spaces and figure out how to welcome them. And actually, by the time we were sort of coming out of the pandemic, we'd almost got the opposite problem, that those kind of open spaces had become social spaces. I mean, for that sort of public health, well-being, your daily allowance, all of that, but also just because you couldn't go indoors for a while. So we almost had the opposite problem, that, you know, at the absolute hammering some of those spaces got, and some of the difficulties that came out of that. But it impressed upon me a real sense of the importance of the sort of activities that Molly was talking about, like getting together, volunteering, how you kind of build communities around that, how you can exchange information. You know, the big challenge we've got with things like universal credit or pension credit or anything that we do where we might find people falling into a void, where they lose benefits and they lose support because they haven't quite understood what they need to do to secure it, is that we can't always reach the people that need us most. So the more we have that kind of community engagement, and people are kind of talking informally, you know, like there's been a change to my support or something's gone wrong, the more we can kind of enter into those spaces and help people through word of mouth, the better. So I think that kind of community engagement work can only build and build. And the only sort of check or balance I would want to bring to it is that we find ways to compare notes. I had a meeting with the Citizen Vice recently. The two MP offices were there. You know, well, Diane Abbott was there with her officers, and Meg Hillier's officers were there. There were lots of councillors there. And I know this anyway, in terms of our Money Hub and all the other kind of partners that we work with, that we often attract different constituents. So Diane inevitably would have a much bigger number of people coming to her for immigration advice. As councillors, we get a lot of housing repair and just the basic living conditions, because we're knocking on doors and people say, come and look at this leak, you know, that I've been living with, or whatever it is. Actually quite similar with Meg Hillier as well. And Citizens Advice has this kind of incredible reporting system that they use, where they kind of break everything down ward by ward. So you get a real sense of where the demographics in one ward are really struggling with something like, you know, claiming financial support, and another area is the health kind of issue, that kind of thing. It's left me sort of thinking about neighbourhood strengthening. And again, one of the big things through that kind of period of the first national lockdown period of COVID, as we set up those sort of neighbourhood forums within the health service, was how useful that was to have that crib sheet, that one pager that Molly was talking about, to kind of see where all the support services were and how to reach them. And to think that we're still looking at how to kind of provide warm spaces and cool spaces all this time later. Yeah, it's quite... It's food for thought, isn't it? I mean, I suspect a lot of you are kind of going through periods of feeling a bit burnt out and a bit like, when's it going to get better? And I've got to confess, I often feel like that as well. Spring is coming, blossom is out there. You know, we are making like really good transformations, you know, across the borough. We're still investing in Hackney. And I think what we can do as a sort of a group or a series of groups is to learn what we need to prioritise and to be flexible and adaptable. So we are going to have to prioritise a lot of work around those people that will suffer, I think, in the kind of universal credit migration. We'll have to think about those cool spaces as we get into the hotter summer weather this year, and just how do we keep on adapting. One thing I will say is that I've discovered in my very brief time since coming in as mayor, a really good, comradely, supportive relationship with other London leaders, because we're all going through the same thing. I mean, we've obviously seen some councils going under. We're lucky in Hackney. We're having to make some really tough decisions, but we're still, you know, we're still in a very strong space. But we did come together to lobby over the Household Support Fund. It is so frustrating to see this short-termist, you know, uncertain state of play that we're in. Even now that we've got the Household Support Fund extended, it's only for 6 months. We don't have all the detail. It puts huge challenge on our staff to figure out how to circulate and distribute it. But, you know, I did at least take heart from the fact that all the senior leaders came together and identified what we should lobby for, and made that call, and it came through. we're all sort of collaborating as well around things like retrofit and, that other stuff that feels almost like an existential challenge. How do we improve the stock of our housing? I mean, you are going to be meeting families who are living in really poor conditions because we've had a delay to capital works and major works through the pandemic period and all those kind of following crises. But again, there's that sense of collaboration across London. How do we kind of look at improving our housing stock? And I do believe if we can improve things in terms of housing, so much else will follow. So I think one of my big focuses as I sort of settle into the sort of the new financial year coming up will be around strengthening neighbourhoods, will be around understanding how we continue to work with the voluntary and community sector, how we continue to work with health and education and business. We've just celebrated a new responsible business charter. So that kind of sense of social value and social responsibility cutting across everything, to work with the emergency services, to work with, all these different sectors of support, and just make sure that we understand on a sort of place-based level what we need to strengthen, where we can rely on our partners, where we need to kind of invest a little more, and just do our absolute best to kind of continue to make Hackney a better place to be. And I do have optimism, because I'm sorry, but I am political and there are elections coming up, and I am hoping to see some positive change. And I think there's a sense of people who want to invest in Hackney might just be waiting, across London as well, to see who the Mayor of London's going to be, what the next government's going to be, before they kind of go boldly forward and invest in us. And we just want to be ripe and ready to take their support on board. But I think there's also just such a sense of cooperation on the ground, and we just have to take heart from that. And I will always be looking for opportunities and trying to throw energy and enthusiasm at people who need a bit of a push. And so my invitation to you is to steer me in the right direction whenever you need, whenever you think I might be able to help. So yeah, thanks very much for inviting me, and thanks so much for everything you do.
Thanks, Mayor Woodley. That was brilliant to hear. Yeah, thank you again for coming along. Yeah, Jenny, do you want to come in?
No, I didn't. I was actually looking for the clap. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I actually had to jump off this call and into the Health and Wellbeing Board update on financial security, and so I did actually have the opportunity to mention you to Lio as a kind of clear example of how some of the ways of working here in this forum, but also through the Household Support Fund, are having a really big impact for residents in Hackney. So it was quite lovely to be able to jump from this and bring a really live example, which I think really speaks to your point, Mayor Woodley, about the importance of all the work you do and everything that you learn about what is and isn't working for residents, and what more we can do. We're always listening, and everything that you share in these sessions with us, we take away and feed in and do what we can with. So yeah, really great to have all your contributions here. Thank you so much.
Charlie?
Thank you, Mayor Woodley, and thank you, Molly and Clive. Just a quick flag on, and Rachel, a quick flag for an event going on next week in the Clissold Park area. There's a health fair thinking about neighbourhood working and working on the ground. There's a health fair being put on by the neighbourhoods at the Boiler House between, I think, did they put the time in there? I need to put the time in there, apologies, I'll find that. But it's just a few different organisations and GP practices on the ground on the 26th of March. For anyone who is working in that area, it might be worth going to. I'll be there as well, so you can come bother me.
Great, thanks, Charlie. Batia, you did have your hand up, but now it's gone down. So if you do want to come in, then yeah, do you want to come in, Batia? I think it's something in the chat around, since the recent work, Shoreditch Park is inaccessible. Not something I actually know too much about. I don't know if anyone on the call knows. I don't know if we have anyone from Parks on the call who might be able to assist with that. If you want to drop, do you want to come in there, Woodley?
Yeah, Bacha, just trying to understand whether you're talking about how you sort of get there in terms of if you power chairs and cobblestones. Okay, well, I'll check that. I mean, I go to Shoreditch Park quite regularly, and I thought there were smooth tarmac paths around, but I will raise that with the parks team. Do you want to put your email in the chat, or send an email to me, and I'll put mine in the chat and can follow up. I just met with Isabel from Wheels for Wellbeing, and another sort of role that I'm thinking of putting in place amongst colleagues is a sort of a champion for disability inclusion, recognising that social model of disability and how difficult it is to access a lot of the public realm. And I know Rachel's done a lot of work in this area, so just wanting to have somebody alongside me with a cross-service overview to understand where we're getting it right and where we're getting it wrong. So it might be that you want to contribute to that. But I'm just putting my email address in the chat for you. Yeah, and you can send me photos. Okay.
Great, thanks, Blair Woodley. Does anyone else have anything they want to share or any reflections on what we've been discussing today? If not, I was going to go to Neil to talk a bit about the council tax support. I don't know, Jenny, were you about to come in then?
No, I was only going to encourage, I was going to post in the chat and encourage those on the call to talk about their brilliant work if they feel brave enough, but they may
yeah.
But no, hearing from Neil would be great also.
Great. Neil, do you want to come in and then we can go to Charlie?
Charles got his hand up. Do you want to?
It was just a request in the comments. Felicia Tay, you spoke about having a team to help people identify benefits and help fill in forms earlier on in the chat. And I know that that's a need across for a lot of organisations. If you're able to, can you come in and say a little more about that? If you're not, no worries, we can follow up another time.
I would have loved to, but Colin is in charge of it. But he does have a lot of volunteers. He's got about 5 volunteers, and people call in and come in, and they help them go through all the benefits that they need, what they can do. They actually help them fill in forms, follow up. They call the DWP, they call any organizations that are needed, water, gas, electricity, they call them up, help them. If they need to fill in any forms, they fill it all in for them. So that's really good. They do paper as well. They even go to court with them sometimes, paper assessments and stuff with them. So we've got lots of people here who do that. And that's just Colin's team. But we've got the advocacy team as well, who would do the PIP and go to court with you if they need to. I'm the hate crime advocate, so this is just my short version of what they do. I do hate crime. So yes.
Great, thanks, Felicia. If there's things you want me to promote in the newsletter, then do just drop me a line or send things to Charlie and he can pass it on. Okay. Yeah, it goes for everyone. If there's ever anything you want me to sort of promote in the newsletter, just give me a shout. Neil, did you want to come in?
Yeah, sort of my maybe biannual talk to the nation, as it were. So following on from Mayor Woodley, and I couldn't have asked for a better sort of prep up than what you gave Mayor Woodley. So thank you indirectly for that. It's part of that bigger working together piece. Now, those of you who come here regularly know I, for my sins, are the face of the revenues team. So those responsible for collecting council tax, business rates, all the stuff that hopefully goes to fund all the good work we can then do out in the community to help those most in need. So it's a bit of a call to arms, and one that Jenny, myself and John are looking at in the future, how we integrate this more. But it's where you're dealing with residents as those trusted partners who maybe don't engage with my team for whatever historic reasons, they're not claiming what they're entitled to. Everyone will have or has had this week, hopefully by now, all the council tax bills for 24-25 landed. Appreciate bar Mayor Woodley's piece. They're not the best piece of reading you're going to get dropping through your doormat. But I would just like, as we need to take the opportunity to say, anything you get, email me, residents who need help. It's really saying that we know we can't reach everyone. So if for us, we can reach more, every one person you can steer to us to claim the right benefit, yes, to pay, if ultimately there is a bill to pay, or to make that long-term arrangement, but just in line with the work we're trying to do with public health, to try and take some of the mental challenges away from dealing with the council and that baggage of carrying that debt around with the resident. So that's what it is. I know I do this, and I don't do it too frequently, so I don't want to lose the sort of point of it, but it's just that ask, on top of all the fantastic work you do, can you do a smidgen more and help those residents interact with us so we can give you the best service that we can? And so hopefully there'll be some news coming out soon as to where we want to try and do something more formal is not the right word, but something where we can build that relationship to give you avenues into our service that makes your jobs easier, and hopefully therefore makes it easier for you to help those residents. But that's a piece of work we're going to work on, because at the minute we know it's dealing with benefits, it's dealing with Money Hub, it's dealing with my council tax thing. We're trying to think of a way and work with some voluntary sectors to go, okay, what's the best way for that to work with the resident at the centre of it? So I don't know the answer to that. If I did, I'd share it with you all, but we'll be looking for some feedback on that. So that's my sort of ask for help, please.
Thanks, Neil. Jenny.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Neil. And I think we'll all be familiar with working directly with residents who, you know, they've got so much going on, and the bills or the letters that are feeling overwhelming really have such an impact on their mental health or their ability to manage. You know, oftentimes it really is a matter of just feeling like one too many things to cope with, but the situation can then become much worse. And I suppose though the residents we are most worried about in terms of those that might not be not feel able to sort of take action to contact Neil's team are likely to be some of the same residents that may miss out on the universal credit transition repayment. And so we're really putting a plea out via all of your work directly with residents, that where you think a resident might be in that situation and might benefit from a kind of warmer referral and a more supportive introduction or connection to the team that can help them to reduce that stress and to have something that at least feels like it's underway. Neil's not that scary, as you've seen, and it's really helpful having Neil here to just sort of remind us that, you know, as a council, we recognise that our letters are not, you know, our blanket letters really are not always, received in a way, you know, are being sent to residents who have got really too much on their plate, and it's really difficult. And so we want to understand how we can work better with those residents so we can get the best possible outcomes for them. But we also know how much additional pressure that puts on your workload. So any help and support that you can give, or any ideas you have about how we can reach out more effectively, we're always really interested to hear. So thank you, and thanks so much, Neil, for your time coming to this session each time. You know, it's really helpful. And I know we will be, I think the plan is that we will be using one of the future sessions here to develop some of those ideas around escalation routes and trusted referrals into services like Neil's, where we can make it as easy as possible for residents to navigate the council systems to be able to get the support they need as early as possible to prevent things getting worse.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Neil. And yeah, I was going to say, I think we probably will be using one of these sessions in a few sessions' time to look at that question of, you know, what's the best way to support our community partners who are working with residents who might be struggling with council tax or other financial problems. So and then I think we are possibly also going to look at another focus session on no recourse to public funds as well. That'll be a bit later on. So if anyone has any ideas about other sort of focuses they want us to look at, because often we'll have a session like today, there's a lot of variety in it, 2 or 3 different presentations, but we've had a few recently where we've really delved a bit deeper into a specific subject. So Genevieve and Josie led a brilliant session on the work of the Homeless Prevention Service, and then we had Ishmael come along and talk about housing services. We had the sort of UC focus session last time. So it's good to have the variety like today, but I think it's really helpful to delve a bit deeper into some of those big themes sometimes, to help sort of demystify things for all of us. So yeah, if you've got any ideas of things that you seem to crop up a lot with the residents you support, but you just don't really know how it works or what the council does in that particular area, just give us a shout. We usually have got the sort of right contacts inside the council, and people are up for coming along and being open and talking about the work they do. So do just give one of us a shout. Genevieve, do you want to come in?
Thanks, John. I just wanted to take the opportunity. I'm conscious of time. I know we're here at the end. Just take an opportunity to talk to our community partners here. The Center for Homelessness Impacts is running a various group of test and learn programs, and one of them that we're interested in getting involved with is their Citadel project, which will be using a group of local community volunteers to support those who are at threat of homelessness or have a history of homelessness, and support them with reintegration into the community, but on a volunteer basis and on a one-to-one basis. And what it will start in August. It'll be a 6-month project, and then in the last 6 months they'll develop. But what they want to really compare is there a difference in results from a one-to-one focus from community organizations versus what we may do as a council already on offer. So it's very interesting. The council will make the referrals, and then they'll be supported by the community volunteers who will be vetted by Housing Justice and who will manage these volunteers. There'll be DBS checks and so forth, and make sure they're appropriate training support where they need it, mainly for low to mid-level needs residents, again, at possible, facing homelessness or with a history of homelessness. So if you have not been contacted or you're interested, you can find out more on the Test and Learn programs. And it's the Citadel project. If it's okay, I'm going to share it in the chat. And that's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Genevieve. That sounds great. Can I share that in the newsletter? That'd be good. Great. We've got 3 minutes left. If anyone else has anything they want to share or promote, or any ideas for future sessions, or if they want to volunteer to present at a future session, that would be great. But if not, we can wrap up. Jenny, I don't know if you wanted to say anything before we close. Oh, Molly, do you want to come in?
Molly can have the last word. I was just going to ask if you could just remind us what we've got on the agenda for the next session, just for those who might be interested. But
yeah, sure. Molly, do you want to come in, and then Charlie, and then I'll say what we got next time.
Just really quickly, really great to prepare for the potential heat waves. So maybe something that we could talk about later on in the spring or early summer about how we can support people in heat waves, but not necessarily Groundwork London so much as someone else. So assigning you a task.
We will be developing our summer protocols for SWEP based on the GLA guidance, but we will post that on our website as well. Thank you, Molly, for that.
Yeah, really good idea. That's a good idea for a session. Charlie, do you want to come in?
Just a quick flag. I'm sure Ishmael plugged this in his session. You can book to speak to your local housing officer if you're a Hackney housing tenant via the link I just published in the chat. It's just an opportunity. They're in various places, including community halls, online, and with our community partners across the borough. So if you are hearing those housing queries, please do use those forms to book sessions. And
thanks to Charlie's brilliant work with our housing colleagues and our community partners. I think that's been a really great piece of work, isn't it?
Great, thanks, Molly. Right, before we close, next time it's the 4th of April, isn't it? So we've got Susan Downing from ELF is coming along to talk about the work that they do around supporting patients with the cost of living crisis, and then we've got Ben from the City and Hackney Carer Centre, so about the support they give for this sort of social emotional needs for carers. So yeah, 2 really interesting presentations, and looking forward to seeing you all there, hopefully. But yeah, thanks for coming along today, and see you next time.
Thanks so much,
thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah,
bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.